Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by Mana Traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters just like you. My name is Evan Irwin, and get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
What's up, everybody? It's been a hell of a week, but happy to be here because I can still talk, so let's do it.
Woohoo! Ruben Bresler, the internet's
There you go.
own.
Hey, that's right. I'm here. I'm looking forward to hearing all of the topics this week. I am walking into this episode more blind than I usually am because I feel like I straight up didn't understand our first pick until Evan started talking during the pre-show about how big of a deal it is.
Yeah, this is our first pick is kind of a doozy. That said, if you did miss our pre-show where we got to talk about all sorts of wild stuff, patrons get access to our extended version right after the show. We post it immediately after we're done. And we kick it off with that first pick. Now, Wizards announced something that, YouTube turns 20 this year. And I've been making content for Magic since 2004 or something. And I thought I had absolutely seen everything that Wizards could possibly do when it comes to products, the way they release products, the way that you buy products, the way that they reprint products, the way that they deal with other IPs at this point, which has been an evolving thing over the past 5 years that we've been dealing with, including a pandemic in the middle. Okay, cool. But now we have the announcement of Marvel Spider-Man. And what is killing me is that every announcement I've seen about Spider-Man ever since it was announced has made me more sad about the product because I am a digital player. I play on Arena mostly these days. I'll jump into a Vintage Cube on Magic Online every once in a while, but that's pretty much how I play. So when they came out with those scenes, the scene product with the 6 cards, that's not coming to Arena Online. No problem.
Oh, okay.
Not really expecting
Sure.
it. Not a big deal. Okay, fine, whatever. When they talked about Final Fantasy, they certainly talked about Final Fantasy being on Arena. And when they finally unveiled Avatar The Last Airbender, 100% coming to online, 100% coming to Arena, and all that good stuff. Cool. And so they now have decided that Universes Beyond sets are not just going to be, modern and back playable or whatever. They're going to be in standard. So if they make a Universes Beyond set, it's got to be playable in all the formats. And that includes the digital formats. And so if they have a situation where they can't make a digital version of that product, for example, there's no Warhammer, on Magic Arena. There's some of them online. And the same goes for Doctor Who. Okay, they can't do it. How are you supposed to do it? So they said, they want a permanent solution for when they can't bring something to digital for whatever reason, licensing, agreements, money, whatever it takes. And this is where they have enter through the Omenpaths. Through the Omenpaths will be digital sets that are universes within versions of Universes Beyond sets that otherwise wouldn't be coming to digital Magic platforms. The digital cards will be mechanically identical to their tabletop counterparts with unique creative treatments, different art, and different names. They're not going to be creating those sets mirroring every Universes Beyond set, only the ones that will not be coming to digital platforms. Okay, so the first Through the Omens set is coming out on September 23rd, day before my birthday, on the same time, of course, that Marvel Spider-Man is coming out. So only one 2025 set will be affected. So this is crazy for a few reasons. First is I find it incredibly confusing as a product release strategy that you have something that's in cardboard and something that's on digital, and they are completely separate, however, mechanically the same. So this means you have 2 versions that you have to deal with of the same card all the time. So this means, those who create content have to worry about the 2 cards. You're going to name each card. Is each preview going to have both versions of the cards? Is Spider-Man going to have a collector box? I think they've already confirmed that. But is Through the Omenpaths going to have a collector box, which is further spiders out for how many of these types of cards are going to exist? Think about those who run deck lists for websites, Mox Fields, and so on. Those who have those deck lists, if it's a paper event, you're going to have Spider-Man cards in the paper event. You need to export that to play it on Arena. So now you're going to have an entire translation table to turn it from X into Y. And this isn't like the worst thing in the entire world. Also because I believe I heard Spider-Man is not a very large set, which is a blessing. Okay. But you suddenly have a full set of stuff that's different but the same. And then next year, you're going to have another set that's different but the same. And so you're going to start to have literally hundreds of cards with the exact same mechanical abilities called two totally different things, where you're going to have confusion when the digital players talk to cardboard playing players and vice versa. Those who have to create the cards or sell the cards now all of a sudden basically have to create some way to handle it digitally. Do they want to handle it digitally? How do you put it into content? Into content, do you put the digital card name? Do you put the paper card name? Do you put both with a slash in front of it? I don't know. But these problems will just kind of compound with every single time they do this. And so I'm sure I wanted a Spider-Man set. Everybody wants a Spider-Man set. But if a Spider-Man set also comes with this crazy amount of baggage, is that the best thing to do here?
Also, if a Spider-Man set isn't a Spider-Man set, isn't it not a Spider-Man set? Did I just break my own brain? Maybe. But I would leave it. Again, I'm the one of us who has not worked at the higher levels of retail to understand this. So I defer to y'all's expertises.
Yeah, I would say and to Evan's points, I do think it's a bigger issue on the business side of things than on the player side of things, right? Because just like you're saying, to just even try to sort this online, for each of those companies, and some of that I guess is already in place because they have 4 small universes within sets or whatever that are like 7 cards each, that they've already done stuff for commander players or whatever there.
Right.
So there's probably something to handle that already, but the scale is definitely different, right? You're probably talking 200 cards versus, I don't know, 30 cards, right? That's a pretty significant difference to have to handle. To me, though, it really stands more to say, for everybody who says, oh, they're just trying to kill paper, whatever. Like, this says paper's still worth a lot, and exponentially more, because they're still willing to do all this to print this in paper, knowing how much it's going to make.
Right.
They're willing to take some hits on the digital side because the paper is going to make so much money. And at the end of the day, this is likely something to do with Marvel, with Disney, whatever, licensing deals that they have to protect other brand partners and whatever. So you kind of, if you want to make who knows, several million you're going to make on just selling the paper cards, do you take the hit on the digital side? Like, is it worth it? Okay, probably so. I mean, it sucks for some players, for sure, but the money's still going to be there. I think that's the toughest part to the whole thing, right? Like, it's still a business decision that kind of has to be made, because I don't know if I've talked about it on the show before, but there was a point where I was talking to people at Fantasy Flight who owned the X-Wing license, and they were really focusing on making everything to scale. So like your X-Wing, the same size as like a TIE fighter and blah, blah, all this stuff. Well, as they made the larger and larger ships, people were complaining about the scale, and they actually couldn't produce them larger because when you get to a certain size, it's no longer a game piece, it's a statue. And that's a different license that Marvel and LucasArts.
That's like how Converse, when they get shipped into the United States, they pay less taxes than most shoe brands because technically they're slippers.
That's correct.
Yeah. So there's silly things like that.
Thing you get around stuff with.
Yeah.
This is the Godzilla skin backwards. You had the Godzilla cards that had like Zathura, whatever, in the like little name beneath them. Later they were able to reprint Zathura or whatever.
Yeah.
So you'd have a paper version and an online version.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And that's cool when it's like 11 cards, and now when you have a fire hose of cards, and for me, it's not just the one set. I understand the one set will live, Magic will go on. My issue is when it's 2 sets, when it's 3 sets, when it becomes something they want to do.
When it becomes the norm.
It's like, really?
Yeah. And it's a bit weird.
It's just,
I will say that because I thought about this a pretty good bit of, you're not doing this for Final Fantasy.
Right.
You're not doing this for Avatar. So it literally says that the Marvel, Disney situation is kind of in its own upper echelon as far as business, right? Being treated differently. Because, hell, we didn't even get this for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, this might be a new advent. I think that they probably learned a lot from Lord of the Rings. And they probably went through Lord of the Rings and said, oh, crap, we can never print the One Ring ever again. That card is basically a reserved list card.
But we're going to have to get universes within anyway at some point, right? There's stuff in 40K that they want to reprint.
Yeah, but they want...
but
they want... Exactly. So I think that they're realizing, though, that the way they did it isn't perfect for the business angle.
Yeah, for
And
me,
they're still going through growing pains. They're still going to be hurting when they're trying to, get digital
see,
people to
I
not
think
be
it's
upset
more
with
of a
them.
Marvel Disney thing if I were guessing still. Like,
Right.
Okay.
because
And
again, if it was just a regular business thing, then we'd be making the same decision for Avatar,
right. Well, this
right?
is something we talked
That's true.
about in the pre-show, which is even if this is a licensing issue, even if it's Marvel Snap or it's something else we're not even thinking about, it's some mobile game that's causing the problem. We're never going to learn that, like ever.
Oh, sure, they
They're,
can't tell us.
they're never going to tell us this goes down to legal. Legal never says crap. You never say crap that legal's not okay with. Therefore, it's never
Yeah.
coming out.
Sure.
And you just could not just say just because of licensing and then just move on with the rest of the announcement. Can't do that because that's disparaging to Disney.
Yep.
And you can't disparage your IP holder. That's part of the agreement. So
Get a
even
big
if that
fine or a
does,
breach of contract, one or the other.
right, even if that doesn't sound disparaging, let me tell you, in court that's disparaging, and
Sure.
Yep.
that will be bad for you. So I appreciate the conjecture. Look, I am astounded all the time by Wizards' decisions. Like, from the Jace coin to the double feature that had the exact same cards in it. The whole thing was just, this is silly, is what it feels like. Let me tell you what this is. This is damage on the stack. That's what this is.
Okay.
If I try to explain this to somebody, and I've done this, our buddy Chris, for me and Ruben, he's not into Magic right now, so I'm trying to explain this to him. It is embarrassing to try to explain what they're doing with that set. That's the crux for me. It's embarrassing. Like, I'm sorry, you don't get Spider-Man on Arena. Why not? Because question marks. So now it's
up
through
yours,
the
that's
Omenpaths
why.
something or other.
Yeah.
And God forbid there's a collector product for it. That's just going to throw even more spaghetti.
Well, I don't
Well,
think that's happening. Like, I
hope
think
not.
it's all just going to be just core set stuff.
Well,
I don't think
define,
Sure.
define collector product, because
Well,
like
collector
you
packs.
said, so
No.
not the tableau that you were describing.
No. Just the just
Okay.
the collector packs like they've got.
Yeah. They don't do that anyway. So there are no
What?
collector packs on Arena, right?
No.
No, but I'm talking about just for you're right. They don't do collector packs for it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which also means there wouldn't be any more additional treatments, which is also a good thing. So yeah, it's just, to me, it's just embarrassing, and I don't like things that are embarrassing to explain, and I feel like
Sure.
it's embarrassing to explain.
That's the thing. I don't think it's that embarrassing, but
It's not the
I
end of the
mean,
world, but it's not pretty.
but public perception, whatever. There's a lot of people who don't understand business and whatever, and it's going to feel worse than it is. I mean, would I like another option? Absolutely. But this is something, as soon as we started talking about Universes Beyond, and as the licenses got bigger and bigger, there's been a lot of these conversations. Like, at what point are you going to hit that wall? And this is that wall, right? You've now reached for a brand that's big enough that they're like, nah, hold on a second.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can only do so much, right? Because again, you're not going to not take the deal and make, hell, who knows, maybe $100 million plus or whatever off of the paper set. Like, that'd be foolish not to take it, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So just, it kind of is what it is. We'll see though.
We'll see. I recognize.
I think
market
like a
forces
lot of
forward,
things,
but Lord.
we're gamers. We just hear something, we want to freak out, we want to complain.
Right.
But we get to October, we probably go, that sucked, but we're
Right.
fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just want to wrap my head around, these were not cheap decisions. The idea
sure.
that you're going to get all new artwork for every single card.
Exactly.
You don't have to pay an R&D team to do, all of the duty for well, at least a flavor team or whatever, a world building team.
Mhm.
To do all of this renaming, all of the flavor replacement, and so on and so forth. Like, that's a ton of work. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's
That to
still
me
a ton of
also
work.
says how strict that licensing deal is.
Yeah.
And how much money they expect to make off of the paper product.
That's
Right.
So, like, you were still willing to spend all this money on labor, outsourcing, artists, whatever,
Yep.
knowing that you're going to have to make this decision. So, there's expecting a lot from the paper set, I'm sure.
It was something that's kind of tangentially related to that, which I'm sure, and then maybe another thing in it. Pro Tour Edge of Eternities is happening 8 weeks after release. On the same weekend the Spider-Man set comes out, the Spider-Man set will be legal for that Pro Tour.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, I
We are-
didn't realize that.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not having a Pro Tour Spider-Man. We are having Pro Tour
Yeah.
Edge of Eternities on the same weekend Spider-Man shows up.
Okay.
So if it's not rocking too many crazy boats, we probably won't see many cards anyway. Like with Ruben, how many times we've been there on release
Yeah.
weekend and we're expecting something to show up, and it's the same
Sure.
old decks with one different card in the
And
sideboard.
they have said it's going to be somewhat of a smaller set, which I'm assuming
Right.
means 200-ish cards, not the
Right.
full
Yeah,
300
but they're
or
gonna
whatever,
make
so.
they're gonna make Spider-Man a
Good.
good card.
They're not
So
gonna make it
like,
bad. Like,
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
there'll be a handful of cards that definitely will find their way into decks, but probably not a ton right off the bat.
right. I mean, it sucks for me because like literally everything I've heard about Final Fantasy has gotten me more excited about the set.
Sure.
And everything I've heard about Avatar: Last Airbender has got me more excited about the set. But the literal opposite is happening with the Marvel sets. Everything I hear about them makes me go, "Oh man, that kind of sucks." Like, "Oh really?" You know what I mean? I don't want that to happen. I want to be the enthusiast here.
I'm with
Right.
you.
I want to be jazzed, man. Don't
Yeah.
make it. Well, something interesting they also noted here: there are no universes beyond for Alchemy. There are no Alchemy universes beyond sets. There's going to be Alchemy Tarkir is showing up, I think, next week, at least
Okay.
in terms of previews.
Yeah.
And there's going to be no Alchemy for the universes beyond sets, and kind of okay with that, honestly.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, same. Like,
Too many
honestly,
cards.
use that time to do updates for other stuff, please.
Right.
Right? Like, that would be awesome.
If they can
Yes.
bring all the rest of the cards to the client, that'd be great. I saw a
Yeah,
killer
that too.
modern deck today, super killer modern deck, and every card's in arena but gifts ungiven, and I was like, it's always something. It's always something. Even
Right.
when they finally print stuff, it's always something. Okay, let's move
But
on.
speaking of gifts ungiven, what a segue. Oh my God.
What a segue. Let's move on here out of the first pick to gather the townsfolk. Thanks to our sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance that Magic Online experience. Use the code MagicMikes_54P, that's _54Paul, for 10% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. Tell them we sent you. We appreciate them. This next segment is all Power Dragon all the time. Tell us what happened with Commander, all the updates.
Oh boy. Well, the biggest news really that got people talking was we unbanned a lot of cards. And five of them made the list. I was like, I have to be careful because we talked about a bajillion cards.
Okay.
But yes, 5 made the. And honestly, to tell people seriously, both the things that we added to the Game Changers list and the things we unbanned got very extensive conversation. Like,
Sure.
we all nominated different cards for whatever reasons, made our arguments. We filled out spreadsheets and checked boxes, and then we talked about them again for ones that got certain votes one way or the other. Then it went to Wizards, and their people with Commander and R&D had some thoughts, and then we went over them, and then each side rebutted whatever, and then Gavin went and made a presentation, and then it came back, and we verified everything, and then we wrote an article. So, like, there was a long process to get to this point. So if people are just like, oh, well, the Commander format panel decided this and it was just a thing, like, not really. Doesn't really work like that. Like, but I will say this. For the most part, I think I can say confidently that Wizards is listening to the Commander format panel.
Okay.
Like, there's still people in R&D and on their Commander team that, they have some concerns or they'll push back on something or whatever. But overall, like, they are really listening and taking our suggestions. I would say...
Okay.
90% plus of what we recommended or stated or whatever kind of got the okay. So
Great.
Yeah, it's working so far. I can at least say that.
Okay, so let's
good.
start here at the top. Did they change the bracket system in some way?
Mostly for clarity. The bracket
Okay.
system basically stayed the same. This chart got a little bit more clarity, mostly because people wanted more distinction over what do each of these mean and what should I be targeting and
Right.
how many cards should I be playing and what's the flavor feel. So that actually got updated. And in the future, we've talked about adding versions to these so people know where it's at. So this would be like version 1.2 or whatever in
Mhm.
beta. So eventually people will understand if you come across one of these online and it looks different, like
Then
what's
you
the most
understand.
updated version.
Yeah, I would like that. I would like for there to be more version names.
And a peek behind the curtain as far as that goes, we are talking, and I don't know if we're going to ever put it out, but kind of we've discussed a possible chart that shows people both kind of the power level, but also kind of like an expected number of turns to kind of also help people understand that,
I like that.
hey, you're playing these cards, like when you're playing at 4, sometimes your games are still going to be a turn or two faster than if you're playing at 5.
Right.
Even though
I
they
do.
look similar, there's a different expectation happening here.
Yeah, there is also confusion, I feel, maybe not from experienced longtime players, but certainly people who are new to CEDH, where
Yes.
they hear that it is a fast format, and then a game takes an hour, and they're like, no, that's not a fast format. But the game is 3 turns,
Yeah.
and the stacks are full.
Exactly.
But it's not like you get to play your aggro commander that attacks to win. You
Yeah,
usually,
the game went
usually.
5 turns, but it was, 6 actions on each person's turn.
Right. It was a bunch of draw triggers and counter spells and things like that. It's not a bunch of like, so that's one of the reasons why things like Win Nota aren't as good in Commander right now, because that depends on you having lots of attack
Yeah.
steps, lots of turns, and you can't really attack by winning right now in CDH. So speaking of winning in other ways, yet another flawless segue. We're on a roll. What about your personal list in your head? We can start with, is there anything you wish got unbanned? Is there anything you wish got banned? Is there anything you wish was made into a game changer or taken off the game changer list?
No. I'm a believer. I'm the player that I would have more things banned than not. So
okay.
like I'm rarely going to be
you're nobody's favorite.
Yeah, exactly. I'd rarely be calling for unbanned. So
okay.
But again, I think it's good that we have different perspectives for that.
Right.
So when somebody's making an argument for something or whatever, we can talk it out from a different perspective. I think one thing I did want to point out, from the game changers list is I've heard from some people, they feel like it's unfair that some colors have 6 cards and some colors have 10 cards. And it's like, it's not really a color balance thing.
Yeah.
It's really just a card strength thing. And if,
Agreed.
yeah, blue has like whatever, I don't know now, like 15 cards on the list or something, but like a lot of them are kind of dumb Magic cards. So that's just the way it's going to be. Sorry.
Right. So I think a nice summary here, particularly something we can talk about, is you've unbanned 5 cards: Braid's Cabal Minion, Coalition Victory, Gifts Ungiven, Panoptic Mirror, and Sway of the Stars, all of which, of course, exploded in price for
of course,
depending on which card it is. But those 5 came out, and how was your take on those?
The only one I'm really concerned about is Panoptic Mirror.
Really?
Right. If I have any real concern, and not even like really, really seriously concerned, but enough that like if something could be a problem, that's probably the card. But like,
because you can put like a time walk under it or something.
Yeah, you can do some silly things. But,
but first you
Gifts
gotta play a 5-mana artifact and then pay some mana.
Yeah.
And then have it not die.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then be able to untap it and actually hit, you know what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah.
So
and I think Gifts Ungiven is a strong card. I don't think anybody's denying that. But I think in the places it's going to be played, I guess it's fine comparatively to the other power level of cards. Sway the Stars also cost a bunch, and it's just one of those things. Braids, I think there was a time where Braids was really concerning, but
wasn't Braids just annoying, right? Wasn't that what they were?
I mean, yeah. For powering out of Braids, like a turn 2 Braids is a nightmare scenario for.
But also understand now, there's also a bunch of ways to make like treasure and maps and whatever.
Sure.
So like, it's still going to be strong on some tables, but not near what it was before. Yeah. So and Coalition Victory just takes a lot to set up.
Yeah, Coalition Victory is kind of silly, but Braid's Cabal Minion, at least I sort of think these days, is that you are painting such a target on your back.
Oh, for sure.
Even before turn 1, right?
Well,
you're going to be the villain at the table if that's your commander.
Yeah.
If it's your commander, yes. If it's in the 99, that's a different situation.
Right. But if that's your commander, they're going to want you to lose quickly.
Yeah.
Because that is not a fun experience generally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Regardless of treasures and so on.
Sway of the Stars doesn't really concern me. That's another World Fire, and World Fire was fine.
Yeah.
Gifts Ungiven is just a very powerful Magic card. I imagine that'll see play, but it'll be on the same power level as a lot of the blue card advantage engines. We don't have a great way to get Rhystic Study out of the graveyard in the decks that want to get Rhystic Study and Smothering Tithe and things like that. Maybe Replenish picks up in play in those decks in that case, but that one seems reasonable. Coalition Victory should have been unbanned a long time ago, and I would love to see it be competitive, but it is simply not a competitive Magic card.
Yeah,
They
speaking
also
of, Rhystic Study could go die in a fire too.
Yeah, I think Rhystic Study. I think that Rhystic Study, Smothering Tithe, and not Mystic Remora. Mystic Remora is fine. Um, there's another one.
Look, I'm not talking
I'm
about
forgetting.
the gameplay. I'm not talking about the impact. I'm not talking about anything. I think it's just lovely that we have the ability to say that the most expensive card in a set of Magic was a common.
Yeah,
And that's
by a lot.
By not even close. And that
Yeah.
cracks me up. How bad is that set?
Very funny.
It's that bad.
That's
And
pretty
I
bad.
think that cracks me up. I'm sorry. Okay, so last thing here, I'm curious. They removed 2 cards from the list and they added 18. How much input did you have on that, or did you care about that per se on the Game Changers list?
A lot, actually. That was kind of part of the process of us taking all the feedback from Chicago, from our local stores, from a couple other small events, and seeing what people wanted, obviously all of our social feeds, and then kind of talking about, because from the beginning, we knew the Game Changers list was going to need to be larger. But
Yeah.
there was also the let's not overwhelm everybody from the beginning type thing too. Like let's people get acclimated to the idea of this being a thing, and then we can tinker with the list a little bit. And there's still stuff that could potentially be added to it later,
Yeah.
But right now, I think this is a pretty good list, and it's starting to take shape pretty well. But yeah, I was on board with I think all of these. I don't think there was one I really had a big issue with being added. Honestly,
So what came off? I missed what came off.
Oh my gosh.
2 cards, Trumble in Pairs.
Yeah.
Oh, Trouble in Pairs came off. Okay.
Trouble in Pairs definitely came off. And we talked about that one for a bit back and forth. But
Sure.
ultimately, Trouble in Pairs, I think the thing we settled on was you can kind of control when somebody gets the benefit from it.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of games, it actually isn't doing that much.
Right.
So it's a strong card, but it wasn't worthy, especially when you compare it to the other cards on the list.
Right.
Definitely much lower power than everything else that's on there now.
Interesting question from YouTube. Andrew Wright says, with a larger Game Changer list, did the committee ever consider bumping max Game Changers from 3 to 5?
Max Game Changers from 3 to 5.
Or just anything above what it currently
at
is,
level
basically.
3, you mean? Or,
Sure.
Yeah. Bracket 3.
Yeah, interesting.
That may change at some point. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule right now. It's definitely something that we consider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of room for malleability. One thing that
sure.
I would like to shout out at this juncture of this is the first of these announcements since the new team and the new system, and since Death Threats ended the old system.
Yeah.
This seems to have worked under terrible circumstances. But it seems to have worked. And so I'm grateful for that. They even made mention of the previous bans in this article, which of course they had to. They're going to need to for the rest of time. And said, I think Gavin said that Jeweled Lotus is the most likely to come off of the group that was listed, which makes the most sense because it's like a big explosive, not really a combo piece kind of thing.
Yeah. It's somewhat about what does the format look like at some point, right? Is it really missing having Jeweled Lotus? But, if you get 6 months, another 12 months down the road, and it's just everything's fine and good, and people are still playing mid to high cost commanders without it, it's just okay, well, maybe we don't need it.
Yeah. CEDH looks way different. Definitely.
Sure.
Partners are basically the only thing that anybody plays anymore. Jeweled Lotus definitely encouraged people to play 4 cost commanders, like Obnixilis, and there was another 4-drop that I'm forgetting.
So what you're telling me is that when they let you play 2 commanders, they'll always play 2 commanders.
Pretty much. Yeah. Turns out more cards is good. Turns out that's
there's somebody like that too, didn't they?
Yeah. Somebody in chat here. Jen mentions, they're of the opinion they want Elish Norn on the ban list. I'm assuming you're talking about Mother of Machines.
Mother of Machines.
But honestly, when that card first came out, we were concerned that it was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't been a thing.
Now, I will say I play against it in Brawl, and whenever I play against it in Brawl in a deck or as a commander, it is maybe my most nightmare scenario. But that's also the way I play Magic.
It is a very good card, but I mean, literally, and I'm talking about having 2 years of Command Fest and Magic Cons and whatever.
Yeah.
You're just not seeing the card a lot. like every once in a while, and even then it gets dealt with. But
Right.
it's a strong card, but I don't think it's enough to merit adding to the
Yeah.
list. Not right now. Not to say it won't in the future, depending on any, we see it get
Yeah.
played a lot or certain cards get printed or whatever.
Right.
But right now it's still fine.
And we could talk about like what could be banned, what should be banned, what should be unbanned, what should be put on lists, et cetera, till the cows come home. What we're talking about here, though, is what has occurred. And it seems as if this was a successful rollout with a good announcement.
Yeah,
And
it's
nobody's
been
upset.
Positive. I haven't seen the threads of people just losing their mind. There's some people who speculated and bought some cards and are sad that some cards didn't get unbanned. Like
But that happens with every ban and unban.
Yeah.
Somebody
I saw
out there
that
was
in a couple
buying
of
Splinter
spots.
Twins every BNR update for
Yeah.
years.
Dude, people are campaigning for prime time.
Still do it.
I was like,
Primeval Titan? Yeah, no.
Yeah, we're beating the drum of like, no.
I'm pretty sure that before Primetime gets unbanned, you get Sylvan Primordial back.
Yeah,
but anyway,
probably.
again, we could talk about that forever.
Yeah, we get to the point in those types of discussions where someone just never lived in the environment where it was legal.
Yeah.
They didn't know. They're just like, oh, it can't be that bad.
Here's a really interesting thing. More often than not, when somebody approaches me and wants something banned or unbanned, it's for their personal benefit.
Sure.
It's not for the betterment of the format. It's not for a certain deck type to be good or bad. It's literally I like this card or I hate this card.
Yeah, we're all lizard brains who want to
I got a
release
cool
the most dopamine
or a signed version. I want to use.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Right? I get it.
So we as a group have to take that under consideration when we hear stuff. It's like, okay, well, what are you hearing also? Or what did you see at this event? And if it's an isolated case or one or two people where it's like, well, that's not, it's not really enough to worry about.
Yeah, that's nothing.
All right, let's move on here to updates to Arena Direct events. Now, Arena Direct events came out last June, in June 2024. This is where you can play Arena and you can win physical product. Now, I think the issue is not the idea. The idea, I think, is really cool. You get to tie, digital and real, paper Magic together. You can cross the streams. It gives the people who only play Arena some paper, content and so on. That's awesome. I think the issue is that beyond sort of hearing that these are happening and how or whatever, is that you only hear a lot about people not getting the boxes that they won. And a lot of gnashing teeth and a lot of, I've been trying to give Wizards the benefit of the doubt for weeks and blah, 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 blah. And so there is a bit of that touched on of product fulfillment and getting that to be a more streamlined process. They know it's not perfect, but they're working on it and so on. So ideally that's happening. There was also some bits about taxes, and this isn't very exciting, but it kind of is important. They know the U.S. players will need to continue to submit appropriate tax and ID info for claiming physical rewards. Cool. But note, Wizards is going to continue covering U.S. tax obligations for international players who win physical product. They're paying your taxes if you're not in the U.S., and that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of great.
Yeah, because if you get something, I believe it's over, is it like, well, depend on the country, but a lot of them are like $60 to $100. If you're getting it from out of the country, you have to pay duty taxes when it comes in. So boxes are definitely going to be well over that number for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's kind of cool that they are covering that, especially not to get too political in the time of tariffs and retaliatory tariffs and everything else going on. It's nice to be like, hey, y'all don't have to worry about this. We got you.
That's great. And now something I want to cover here, which is the direct structure updates. Now, if you see a few sensational headlines, you'll see things like, it takes more wins to get product, and it's expensive, it's way more expensive, and blah, 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 blah. Well, there's some reasons for that, okay?
Right.
What's changing is that players need to earn 7 wins before reaching 2 losses to earn the top reward. For collector boxes, that's you need to get to 7. You used to get to 6, okay? But for play booster boxes, you need to get to 6 wins to get 1 booster box and 7 wins to get 2 booster boxes.
Okay.
That's awesome. Yes, is it making it a little bit harder? Okay, but you're also structuring it in a way, as you see here now. It used to be you only got, gems coming back to you for 4 or 5 wins. Now, for 3 wins plus, you'll get not only some gems back, you'll get some packs back, so that'll help build your collection and whatnot, and you'll get a better rebate at a lower tier of loss. So that's a thing. The collector booster, it got more expensive. The Universes Beyond play booster got also more expensive to 8,000 gems. But again, if you look at these numbers here, the rebates are higher for your lower
Yeah.
wins.
I was just about to say it. Every win level, they upped the number of gems and then added boosters. So cool.
As long as you ain't going 0-2 drop. And if you do get close, let's say for that Universes Beyond collector, event, if you get close to your 6 wins there, you get back 14,400 gems. That's almost 2 more runs right there.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't get it. I understand, but this ain't exactly a rip. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
This is different.
Yeah. It's much more like it feels much more like a gaming tournament where you're like, yeah, we didn't get to the ultimate prize or we didn't get to the thing, like the end of the race, but getting close to the end of the race doesn't feel quite so bad.
Yeah, you get to run it back for not as much that you would have to in previous setups. And that's a cool thing. So, yeah, a little bit more expensive, but yeah, you're getting stuff on the back end. It's making it a little bit easier to run it back. And I understand that can be seen somewhat predatory, but look, we're Magic players, we like playing Magic events. That's just how it is. So if they let you play in more Magic events easier,
I don't even see that as predatory. Like, this is...
I'm just giving the extremist view that I've seen. It's like, come on, guys, really?
I'm just looking at the payouts and thinking of all the stuff we've gotten before and the way things could have been done. Like, this is at least all positive, right? Like, one more win, sure, but everything else along the way, they just giving you more. So, like, I'm for it.
Yeah, I'll take it. Moving on here to an interesting article on medium.com from Ari Nee. Is that right?
Ari Nia. Yeah, Nia.
Very nice. Let me get it
former
up here.
Designer for at Magic.
Absolutely. And he notes sort of how they fixed white and how they sort of changed it and how white cannot always be play little tiny dudes and swing them sideways, and that's going to be the end all be all for white. Honestly, I think a lot of the TLDR for this article was just let white draw cards. Like, there were some other bits that changed and whatnot, but honestly, it felt like a lot of it was just let them draw cards. Because white couldn't draw cards, sort of traditionally for a very, very long time. Also, make sure that white makes the most tokens. I think that was the other bit, was stop having red make all the crazy tokens with the goblins, make white make the best tokens, because that's what it should do the best. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I love stuff like this. Show me how the sausage is made, like, show me what you thought was working and what wasn't working. I love the idea of seeing the decision making behind it, and I encourage more stuff like this in the future.
Yeah, I thought this was great, and the fact that it's on Medium was kind of shocking. But it was a really excellent peek behind the curtain from Ari Nia, and I'm looking forward to learning more. This was just a really excellent retrospective on how they fixed white. Now, unfortunately, they're going to have to do the same for red, and that's just the cyclical evolution of how.
Well, now
how
red's
Magic
starting
works.
to make mana, which is weird. It used to be red could make like Seeding Song, like crazy mana for one turn. But now it's like you get guys that tap for mana in red, and you're like, okay,
yeah, it's great.
That's
a lot of them are generating treasure too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So they made white just a bit more interesting, and I thought that was great, and give me more stuff like that, because I think it's lovely. Okie dokie. Let's see here. Let's turn the corner now to the finisher. Bring up that right there. It has been less than 2 weeks since the Blueprints released, a puzzle adventure game from designer and Magic Mythic Spoiler creator Tonda Ros, or is it Rose? And it is doing gangbusters on the indie game scene. MTG is a hotbed of game designers, from Brian Kibler to Dustin Gary to all the folks who've worked for Wizards over the decades. Well, we're gamers too. So tell me about your game and why we should play it, Ruben.
Well, I actually do teach game design at the New York Film Academy, but I can't talk about any of the games that I'm designing because my life is all about NDAs, which got me thinking. So I'm excited to announce my game is a competitive contract and roster builder where you play a devil competing to get the most souls, called Contract from Below.
Nice. Nice. Power Dragon?
Well, Game Store Simulator being super popular, that's obviously my jam with some history there. So I'm going to put my entry in as cottage industry, where you get to keep your head above water as a small business owner. But there's actually good news. If you actually get to get in there as a store owner, a marketer, an event organizer, a commentator, a podcaster, you do all those things, and you've completed the Power Dragon Challenge.
Yeah.
Achievement unlocked.
Yeah, you only have to play the game 35 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, everybody loves an in-game economy, and these days we're all living in an in-game economy. But wouldn't it be nice to be the ones running it instead of just being impacted by it? So I'm excited to introduce my new game, Actual Real World Tycoon. Because if you can't afford anything, wouldn't you rather it be your own damn fault?
Yeah,
I did.
true.
Yeah.
True
I did
facts.
this. Oops. Was my toe blown off? That was on purpose.
How dare I do this to me?
Yep.
That ends another live episode of Magic Mics. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things magic. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, as always, good to be here and fun talks, man. This was a good week.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Ruben.
Pretty interesting deep topics. And thanks everybody for showing up and for commenting and donating bits and subscribing and being part of the Patreon and all that stuff. We really appreciate it. Even if we don't say it out loud every single time, every single number that goes up, every single blip and every single comment means the world to us because it tells us that we exist. And that's all I want to do.
And we read those things. We really do. So be nice.
Yeah.
Constructive, but nice, which we appreciate. We're going to move here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-hosts, Power Dragon and Ruben Bressler, viewers like you for watching or listening. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us on our exclusive member Discord. Subscribe to our Patreon. Watch us live on Twitch, join us live or taped on our YouTube channel, check us out on TikTok, follow us on Blue Sky, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.